Most people think changing their life is supposed to feel exciting, motivating, rewarding, fast. But the truth, the beginning usually feels heavy, slow, frustrating, like you're working way harder than the results that you're actually seeing. And that's exactly why most people quit. They think something must not be working. They think maybe they're not cut out for it. But what if that resistance is normal? What if the hardest part of change is simply the force required to break free from the gravity of your old life? And that is what today's episode is all about. Escape velocity, the amount of force a rocket needs to leave Earth's gravity, and that exact same force it takes for a person to leave behind average habits, average income, average thinking, and an average life. Because make no mistake, your old life has gravity. And if you want something different, it's going to take thrust. Welcome back, guys, to a brand new episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Ben, and excited to get into it with him. Guys?
Oh, that is powerful. You know what? I've never heard it explained like that. I think it's a great analogy and a great topic to be having a conversation around. There's a lot going on right now with some rockets, NASA. I know that you have some friends and family members that are part of the Artemis mission, and I love watching that stuff. But you watch these rockets taking off from Earth and just how fast they're accelerating and how have you seen the blaze of a rocket before when they're taking off?
That's always been a bucket list item for me. I've always wanted to go and see one at Cape Canaveral down in Florida, or I mean, now they have more options with SpaceX and some of this other stuff, but I would love to see one in person. This last one they had when that Artemis went around the moon, seeing that liftoff was insane just on TV.
Yeah, and you can the glow of the rocket is so intense, and I can't even imagine what it would look like if you're there on the ground in person watching that. But then relating that to leveling up and getting to the next level and escaping that gravity of your existing life. That's awesome.
Yeah, let's jump into it, man. I know you have some cool stuff to talk about on this too, so jump into it.
I wanted to start off with just identifying the gravity that's holding you down. We all have gravity in our life. Think of it like this. Before a rocket can leave the ground, it has to overcome gravity. And before you can level up your life, you need to identify what's pulling you backward. For a lot of people, it's not one dramatic thing. It's dozens of small anchors. It's the paycheck to paycheck habits. It's the constant eating out. The weekend drinking, the negative friends, the doom scrolling, the excuses, the all start on Monday mentality. All of that creates drag. And here's the dangerous part, because those habits are common, they start to feel normal. But normal doesn't mean harmless. Normal can quietly keep you broke, tired, distracted, and years behind where you could be. You cannot beat what you refuse to identify. So the first question today is simple. What gravity am I living under right now? And I think just having that awareness is so important because, like we just touched on there, it's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day life, the paycheck to paycheck, the normal spending habits, the weekend out with friends, drinking, binge drinking. But all of that stuff, it compounds day after day, weekend after weekend, month after month, and pretty soon 5 years have gone by.
Yeah, I like to think of gravity too as just this, like sometimes I just deal with, I'll be completely, open to you guys today, just, feeling kind of overwhelmed sometimes, not really depressed, but just kind of like, just like anxious. There's like so much going on. Like you have a lot of weight, at different times in your life, whether that be with work, relationships, whatever it may be. But I think that's just something to think about when you talk about the weight. It could be, workload, it could be personal stuff. And it's just crazy how I think important it is to at times just kind of realize that, what's really important in life, what really matters. I know, I don't know if this was a week or two ago, you and I both really like Dan Martell. And I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was having a day like this where I just felt kind of heavy. And I took my dog Charlie on a little bit longer walk than normal. And I remember Dan Martell talks about exhaust the body, tame the mind. And just the idea of, when you're feeling that weight and something that maybe is feeling heavy and holding you down, just that ability to get over that quickly by just getting some fresh air and some exercise, and how really dramatic that can be. And I know you're huge on that with your daily running in the afternoon too.
It's so big for me, and I just ran the most miles I've run in the last 20 years. In the month of April, I hit 225 miles. But then what I did is I took the following week off, the first week of May, and I could just feel myself that first week of May because I wasn't running. I was just, recovering, resting, giving my legs and my feet a break. But that mental clarity, though, I was starting to really feel that pressure that you're describing and some of that anxiety. And it does make such a difference. And it's just a reminder to me that I need to go for a run. It's so good for me mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And it really does have a tremendous impact on reducing some of that anxiety that we face.
Crazy how much of a difference something so simple as just fresh air and a little movement can really make.
Yeah.
There's another saying, I'm trying to remember it when you were talking. It's like, when you're feeling emotion, take motion. So I think that was another one that I'd heard. That's kind of an easy to remember and very true as well.
Okay, that's great.
Let's talk a little bit now about just the liftoff and how it requires an uncomfortable amount of fuel. This is where people always get discouraged because the beginning of any transformation requires way more effort than people expect. And the first year in business is the same way. When you're trying to get healthier and exercise more, those first, 10, 20, even the first 100 workouts, the first 6 months of paying off debt, if you're trying to get in a better financial situation, the first, for us, the first 50 podcast episodes that we recorded, all this kind of stuff. It feels like you're pouring in effort, energy, all of this stuff, and you're barely making any progress, any movement at all. But, that doesn't mean you're failing. That means you're still on the launch pad, because rockets burn the most fuel in the first few minutes. And that's because, gravity fights hardest at the beginning. And life works the exact same way. You may need to read while others scroll. You might need to work weekends while others are relaxing, maybe saving money while others are spending, practicing while others are procrastinating. There's so many ways to look at this, but for a season, at least just think of it, in the short term, like, for the next 6 months, for a season, imbalance is often required to create that momentum. And average effort will almost always never, ever produce uncommon results. So, it's just another saying that I like to think of as just, like with an airplane, it burns the most fuel at takeoff. It's once you get to cruising altitude and you have that momentum, things go a little bit more smoothly. But just good way to think about it.
Yeah, there's so much that you can find online, and whatever you're looking for, or if you have a thought or mentality and you're looking for validation online, like, you're going to find it. And one of those things is the balanced life versus the imbalanced life, and
that's such BS.
It's
balanced life.
Who doesn't want to live a balanced life? But you're absolutely right. If you're going to do something remarkable, if you're going to do something impactful, if you want to get ahead, you're going to have to put the hours in. One thing that I have realized as I've gotten older, and I've shared this with my kids, is that the ability to work hard and be intentional, that's an actual skill. And you have to learn to develop that. The tenacity and the focus, what you're describing here, especially during the takeoff period. When I got into mortgage back in 2017, and this is right when I was going on my own, I would spend every Saturday in the office. I would ask my manager for a list of numbers, and I would just start making cold calls. And I did that for Saturday after Saturday after Saturday for about a year. It's not because I wanted to do that, but
sounds horrible.
But it gave me an opportunity to refine my phone skills. It gave me an opportunity to connect with, build relationships and connect with folks. And I got business out of it. But I reflect back to that because that was my takeoff for when I transitioned into this industry. When you're transitioning into a new industry, or you're starting something new for the first time, you do have to do things to keep that momentum that are probably going to make you uncomfortable.
Just one thing I'll add to that I've been really trying to be intentional about for the past year or so is not looking at the weekend as the weekend. And anybody else that's out there listening or watching us on YouTube today that is also an entrepreneur or just a hustler, somebody that's trying to, pursue progress, man, there is something to be said about just, if you work a little bit every day, Saturday and Sunday, just putting in a couple hours, whatever it may be, but just putting a little bit of effort on the weekends, it makes Monday so much more just palatable. It's not this like, oh God, it's Monday again. It's like you can feel, content with not, maybe having a little bit easier of a Monday because you put in the effort on Saturday and Sunday. And it's just crazy how, like, even just the 2 days on a weekend, how because of those 2 days off is the reason why Monday always is such a, a slog to get back into the groove. Just 2 days and you already feel that.
Have you ever gotten the Sunday scaries, is what they're called?
My girlfriend Courtney and I talk about that all the time. Not as much anymore, with her having a different career path right now. But yeah,
I used to get that so bad, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, where I just had, and I don't drink alcohol anymore, so that's helped tremendously. But I used to get like the Sunday scary so bad, like Sunday evening before going back to work. And to your point, one thing that I'm trying to do, that I'm focusing on, is really trying to keep my morning routine and what time I get up every morning the same on the weekends. I haven't been able to do it because a lot of times I'm just so tired and I feel like I need that extra sleep. But I do enjoy going to a Starbucks, and I'm always working, but I'll kind of change where I'm working, how I'm working, the projects that I'm working on. And so like weekends for me is more passion, more things that I want to build outside of my normal day to day. But to your point though, it's like I'm always doing stuff. And that does just keep you more. What I've realized is that when you're constantly feeding your mind, it helps you stay on top of certain things as far as education, skill set, knowledge, being a resource for not just my mortgage career, but maybe some of these other things as well.
yeah, definitely. I like that.
What I wanted to share is that why most people quit, and most people quit during this fuel burn that we're talking about. The most important part of the episode is right here. Most people are not failing; they are quitting during the invisible phase. They quit because there's no applause, there's no obvious payoff, no big dramatic signs that it's working. They go to the gym for 2 months and don't see the abs. They make videos for 90 days that don't go viral. They save money for 6 months and still feel broke. So they stop. But compounding is invisible until it isn't. The leads are building, the discipline is forming, the confidence is growing, the systems are getting tighter. You just can't fully see it yet. And this is the part where most dreams die, not because the person lacked talent, but because they mistook slow progress for no progress. And that's, I mean, how true is all that?
Yeah. We've done some episodes in the past. I think it was maybe a year or two ago in season 1 about the, oh man, I'm forgetting the name of it. The curve where it's the first year optimistic. You know what I'm talking about?
Hmm.
Oh man, I should have thought that through before I started talking. But just an example though of oftentimes it's when you're having those feelings of you're not seeing anything, you're feeling like nothing's even happening. It's
Yeah.
maybe the point of maybe quitting, but it's always right after that you start to actually have results. And so many people quit when they're, at the 5-yard line, almost in the end zone, but they just quit right before they really are going to see those results.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that the valley of despair is what you were referring to.
There we go. Yep.
From a couple of years ago, but it's absolutely right. I have that Alex Hormozy quote. If you don't quit, you can't lose. I mean, that's one of my favorite things that I just tell myself constantly. If you don't quit, you can't lose. And that's truly what it's all about. And you can apply that to every area of your life, your fitness, your relationships, your work, your career. If you don't quit, you cannot lose. And I think on this podcast, we talk about personal growth. We talk about going to the gym, developing healthy habits. We talk about long-term investing. And I also think that this is why Americans struggle in so many different areas, is because they want the results right now. They want the abs right now. They don't want to wait 3 months. They want to be a millionaire right now. They don't want to have 10 years of grinding and living an imbalanced life.
Yep. I did a solo episode a couple weeks ago when you were out of town about, not comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 10. And just with social media and everything else these days,
Yeah.
people are just so willing to give up because they're not willing to put in the work. It's, I'd say, one of the biggest challenges that the youth, everybody, not just youth, everybody right now, I think has just not being willing to put in the work. Very, very true.
Yeah, putting the work in and having that delayed gratification and that long-term vision and mindset. And that's why you have to have a long-term vision that's very compelling for yourself and your family. Do you ever watch Jim Rohn? Sometimes I'll share stuff with you, but man, he is so good. I came across a video of his last week, and he was just talking about how if the why is powerful, the how is easy. And so
Say
if
that
you have a
again.
really powerful why you're doing something, why you're growing, why you want to go have this career, the how is easy.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
once you have,
oftentimes the why is because of pain. You know, if it gets so painful, that also sometimes is what causes people to finally take action.
yeah, and then there's the why not. If this
Hmm.
person did it, why can't I? Why not me?
Yeah, very, very true. I think you're a great example of that with the short-term rentals, and I think an inspiration for a lot of people on that front. You know, just realizing that when you have people that are actually within your circle, people that are actually close enough to you, that are finding success in different areas, it makes it a little bit more tangible, a little bit more realistic. I feel, you know, so it's great when you have not social
Hmm.
media, but actual people that you are, you know, friends with in real life to see, you know, having success, having progress. It's just a whole different impact, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to have those people that are actually doers in your circle. But like, I don't have some crazy extravagant life. I mean, I probably live, my how I live is probably below your average person my age.
Hmm.
Kind of mid 40s, but that's because I'm making sacrifices. I have a plan. I have things I want to do. But earlier in the episode, I was talking about some anxiety and some frustrations, and the Airbnbs a little bit this past month or two. There's been some anxiety there and some frustration, and so it's looking at all these different things and putting all your eggs together and realizing that this season with this asset or this thing right now is going through a little bit of a challenge, but over here this other source of income, things are going better and they're improving. And then you got the social media stuff and this, so it's putting all of that together and just realizing that there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, things are going to be growing, contracting, you're going to be experiencing highs and lows all at the same time. And so it's learning how to manage all of that just emotionally.
Hmm. Very true. Let's move on now to the kind of the next part of it. And this is probably one of the more encouraging parts of all of this talk that we're doing today. It's, you know, once you hit the escape velocity, that's when life actually starts to help you. So, you know, eventually, if you stay in it long enough, like we're talking about, things do start to get a little bit lighter. They're not easy, but they're lighter. What I mean by this is, you know, the workouts, they actually become part of your identity. You know, you're no longer maybe even considering, do I actually get up when the alarm goes off? It's, you know, it's your identity. No, I get up. It's part of what I do. You know, saving money becomes automatic. Content that you're filming maybe gets easier to create. You know, your confidence starts to rise. Your network
Yeah.
improves. Maybe even some of the referrals start actually stacking up. Now is when the momentum is actually starting to help carry you, and you're no longer using all of that energy just trying to get off the ground. You're operating from a new altitude, and this is what I was saying earlier about, you know, if an airplane burns the most fuel at takeoff, once you get to that cruising altitude, you know, that's when all of a sudden you have all the people that come out of the woodwork, you know, wow, Adam, wow, Ben, you got so lucky, you know, man, how
Yeah.
are you so successful? You know, all these just surface level comments that don't see any of the work that you've been doing to take off to get to that cruising altitude. You
Hmm.
survived that fuel burn, but you know they never even stayed around long enough to finish. So escape velocity is ugly, it's lonely, it's exhausting until suddenly it becomes freedom, and that's just again that sticking into it long enough where you can finally get some results.
That's so powerful. And then think of it like this: after you escape the gravity that you're describing, then at some point you're going to start attracting new things into your life. Better opportunities, better resources, values, other people that are maybe more aligned with what you're trying to accomplish, and then all of a sudden you're in a different galaxy or universe.
And I feel like you're when you have momentum, when you get to that cruising altitude, you also have the capacity to take on more at that point. You know, what once was overwhelming now just is again part of your routine where, you
Yeah.
know, and like as an example with real estate, you know, when I first got into it, even just one listing, you know, was a full plate for me. And now it's like, you know, a couple buyers, couple listings, couple sell, you know, just a lot on your plate, yet it doesn't feel, you know, any worse, any more stressful than it did when I first got started and only had one thing. You know, it's just
Hmm.
that repetition, that momentum, just that ability to have the confidence, the clarity, and just that capacity to take on more,
And going before you're ready,
for sure.
getting out of your comfort zone. You don't think you're ready or you don't think you're qualified? Good. The time to act is now.
When you talk about getting out of your comfort zone, I know we got to close this one out in a second, but totally kind of different tangent here. But I just think about our generation not having cell phones, being able to really be forced to talk to girls, as I'll use dating as an example, to have to go talk to them in person, and nowadays it's just such a completely different dynamic where kind of along these same lines, like there's just no ability, no way to actually build that confidence. And I don't know, that I've just been thinking about that a lot recently with just the generation that we're in and how different a lot of these just social constructs are compared to how it was when we were around, and how just something as simple as just asking a girl out on a date or to homecoming or prom, how much different that is. But that by itself isn't that big of a deal maybe, but just how those little things as an adult have really formed you into the person that you are and the capacity to, handle that type of stuff. And maybe I'm going on a tangent there.
It's such an interesting topic, and we should do an entire episode on this, but just the relationship component. And when you look at dating and birth rates and people that are married and own a home by the age of 30, all of this data is just declining, everything, all of it. And I mean, there have been some crazy statistics with men. I mean, I think it's only like 18% of men that are age 25 have asked a woman out in person.
I saw one today on the news saying that a third of men from the age of 18 to 30 still live with their parents.
Yeah. And Colorado is one of the biggest states. And so a lot of things are changing. That cold approach is what we're talking about. And I think a reason for that is because of how we look at success and failure and look at rejection. And rejection can actually be a very healthy thing, but you have to be able to be okay with getting rejected. And if you ask 100 girls out, you might get rejected by 93. But if you're so afraid of rejection that you're not going to ask anyone out, then you'll never go on a date. You may never have a relationship. And so redefining that and looking at that. When I was a kid, I sold chocolate bars, and so I would go door
World's
to door.
greatest,
world's finest.
World's finest. Man,
World's
those were good.
finest chocolate.
$1.
Well, we had the double bars because they were like stacked together. They were two, so they were $2.
Oof. Man, I would pay $5 for one of those right now.
We'd go door to door and got a lot of no's, got some yeses. We'd also go to businesses. We'd go to car dealerships. And I was just very thankful that my dad encouraged me to go do that. He would drive me around all these places and support me, but I was still the one that was knocking on these doors. And so just being able to knock on somebody's door, introduce yourself, share with them who you are, why you're doing this, why it's important, and then getting a sale or not, it's a really, really valuable thing. So I don't think that youth nowadays are doing things like that, because that's what sets you up for some of those skills later in life.
Absolutely.
So if this feels heavy right now as we wrap up here, that's good. That may not be a failure calling. That may be your liftoff calling. If you feel like you're putting in massive effort with limited visible reward, just keep going. You may be far closer to momentum than you realize. Your old life has gravity. Your new life requires thrust. Stay in the burn, keep applying force, and that thrust will eventually turn into discipline and then compound into freedom. We'll see you guys next week on the Pursuit of Progress podcast. Until then, let's keep thrusting forward. For Benjamin Adams and Adam Lang, we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.